Okay, with that all out of the way, let's do the tedious. And this is when things get so goddamn tedious. 5.3 is a little bit annoying because it's all about if you want to go down this route, certain types of classes will be required. And that's where, I'm going to leave that thought with you. As you can see here, Ancient Knowledge. All champion classes but Mystic reduce their base attack by 50%. So does it imply that you should take in a Mystic base champion? Look. Is completely up to you. Now there will be those that will say yes, go for the applicable type of class against these different types of different types of chapters and quests and things like that, but others will say no to this. Obviously the main piece of advice is you do you at the end of the day, but keep champions or enemy champions you're going up against to L1s, because let's face it, you don't want to be smashed by an L2. There are some trickier lanes like Cornered and Bane which may require you to bring certain types of champions. Now let's face it, now looking at this, I'm like, look, Bane, Cornered, to me, I may want to take down Old Man Logan or champions that hit unblockable specials, but then again, there are different champions that could be really helpful. If you've got the aura of Hazaroth, then you've got Doctor Doom, and that can be very good against stuff like Cornered with limiting down power. And also Bane, it's still cool that you go unblockable because you're able to shoot back Bane to the enemy. And also there's so many other champions to pick and choose to then switch back and do unblockable specials. Like Ghost, like so many other decent champions. Morningstar as well as a Mystic based character could be handy for this because the champion goes from fight to fight, you get 5 fights, and if you've got the champion up high, then you're going to find yourself that you're gaining back health, especially of those persistent. When it comes to the end boss being Mordo and you're kind of worried about maybe the champion's a bit too defensive, then champions that throw SP1 unblockable effects may be quite good at kind of triggering the champion out of doing anything. Also, like Doctor Doom, which is a Mystic based character, could be quite effective. And yeah, don't write off certain champions like Cat Beardo and also other champions that do petrify, like Void. Even though it would be class advantage, but the fact is you reduce down to 50%, it would be still kind of cool to use champions that are more effective based on utility than it would be a case of using champions that are specific based on going, okay, well you must have Mystic based on Ancient Knowledge. At the end of the day, it's a pulse-based attack, a beam attack off the L1, or it's a case of like a 2 swipe back off the L2. But try to power control with champions like Magic, that could be quite helpful as well. Your choice really on this, but SP1, SP2, try and avoid as much as possible. Now on to Overclocked, and Overclocked is all about your tech champions. As you can see here, tech champions reduce their base attack by 50%. Now with this one, there are so many tech champions that could be very helpful to go up against different things on different lanes. You've got your Sentinel, you've got Iron Man Infinity War, you've got Darkhawk, you've got Starkey, you've got Ghost, you've got Warlock, you've got Guillotine 2019, you've got Awakened Star-Lord. Man, the list goes on. Obviously, the main issue with this is that you're going against a champion that starts with an SP2. How the Duck's SP2 is kind of annoying. His SP1 is more easier to avoid because effectively he's going to do it in a 2-part method and kind of come towards you and you've got to swipe back. This is where a champion like Stark Spidey is very, very good for this situation because you have the evade ability with this champion, and not to mention the fact that that's pretty good for an SP2 starting off and getting hit by a projectile. Obviously, when you're playing Stark Spidey, keep down into a block because he's going to auto evade or kind of go into an evade like state. So if you try and go back with him, chances are you're going to mess it all up. So stick into a block when a champion throws an SP2. And obviously, if you can continue to fight with trying to absorb like L1s, SP1's going to be easier to avoid. But also don't write off the fact of going into a phase with the very delightful Ghost, because then if you do get hit by a bleed, then you're able to then phase that bleed, create yourself some lovely fury based attacks or like passives, and then smash through the enemy quite easily. And obviously, like I said, those other options of tech champions could be used. You could use persistent charge based champions like your Corvuses, your Aegons, etc., in order to really take down Howard. But yeah, pretty straightforward after you get past that SP2 issue. Next up, we're on to X-Gene. This is all about the mutants. Now, you can use mutants as there's so many to choose from that are really good. Archangel, we got Iceman. They're good for lane clearing. That's the really important thing. Watch out for Cornered. Cornered lane, it's a pain with stun immunity as well and healing. I'd probably say when it comes to anything Cornered relating and kind of power absorption, maybe look to a champion like Rogue. She's quite good at power control. There's also just huge amounts of damage output with Havoc. And again, the list goes on with available champions. Psylocke as well for power control, very effective champion for that. When it's stun immunity, it's going to have to be all about your intercept game. That's going to be one of the most important things. And also when it comes to the boss, now got a full write-up of this boss, which is indeed going to be Rogue, but is getting to Rogue. That's an issue with all these different ones we can see here. They get different positive things. Insecurity, mirror image, you know, it's all annoying stuff. Cornered, strike back, those kind of things. But as well, like, you know, you'll be taking out one lane at a time, which will be taking out one aspect of the incoming node at a time, which is obviously going to be frustrating. So depending on what node you take down, it's going to be a slugfest. Intercept game will have to be key, or use champions to hit into your block, into the oil block, and attack out aggressively. Champs like Cap, Infinity War, or mutants like Colossus, who are very strong defensively. Colossus with heavy, then go into an SP2 straight after, will ramp up damage. Unblockable Finale is annoying, and hit in specials close to 25% of the marker, and the intercept game obviously is going to be on point. Mutant champions like Domino with Red Hulk and Massacre synergy are good, obviously for the extent of the heat and incinerate damage you do. Namor and Mega Red, Archangel, etc. Those are some really key champions to use against this boss. But like I said, debuff shrugging off is a pain, and you will need to focus on your intercept game more than ever, or allow the champion to try and do a block break, and then you switch back, you swipe back, and you swipe in again. So watch out for that as being a key pointer to then hit out at the enemy. Here we now are with 5.3.4, and this is Stellar Pulse, so it's all about using cosmic-based champions if you choose to. Obviously, that's not a set rule, but again, as I said, it's up to you if you want to either go with champions that are what is stipulated or any other ones. But let's face it, you will lose that base attack otherwise, unless you get champions that ramp up persistent base charges and then increase their damage output. Corvus being a fantastic option for this. Cat Marvel movie, Hyperion, Angela, Proxima with the missions. You know, there are so many good champions to choose from. You've got Ronan, Awakened, Permastuns. You know, watch out for Cornered as well in this, because you can use power control champs like Doctor Doom and Magic, and obviously they do help out with power control. But the fact is, it's up to you whether or not you want to go down the rules. Now the boss, Hyperion. Okay, so depending on what you plan to do, stun immunity, which you do get, is one of the worst things about this champion, especially being Hyperion, a very, very tricky customer. And power control could be an option. Well, it has to be an option, really, if we think about it. There's not many off the top of my head that I can think of that are cosmic and power control. So for the point of usage, it may be a case of actually taking down a mystic-based character that is actually going to be helpful for this, as opposed to any other cosmic based champion. There are some options with Petrify, with the likes of She-Hulk, with the likes of Void, and with the likes of Cat Beardo, but let's face it, again, it's down to what champions you feel you want to use, and power control with Mystics may be a good option. Watch out for any kind of Mystic ward that could be around, but doesn't seem to be affecting the boss, which is great. But the fact is, keep to L1, keep to L2. Intercepts are going to have to be the only way to take down the enemy, unless you choose to stay into a block and have the enemy do a heavy attack towards you. But I wouldn't recommend that, because the champion gets power gain, and obviously nullifying that effect would be a good idea. So mainly it points to power controls and the Mystic line to take down this champion the most effectively. Okay, and now on to 5.3.5. This for me has been the home of Blade. I cleared most of this using him, and there were some funny things with using Mordo with the end champion, with triggering off stun and also auto evading, astral evading even. But you could use other champions like Morningstar, which can punish buffs. It's kind of a hilarious option, but I don't know if it's really the right thing. Gwenpool can be a helpful option as well, going up against different types of lines, as it's a still a skill-based champion that could be used. And look, let's face it, at the end of the day, when you're facing off against certain champions, you want to keep them to an L1, L2. Hawkeye could be a really good option for this. And yeah, I think that's one of the main ones to recommend. Nick Fury as well, Aegon, going from fight to fight, building up those persistent charges. Killmonger as well. You know, you'll have some great options. Stealth Suit Spidey, man. There's so many champions to list off that that have recently and, you know, in the last few years been introduced that really make situations like this going against Act 5 a lot more easier. Okay, now let's talk about the boss, and obviously all the champions we mentioned, your Nick Furies, your Aegons, your Blades, your even likes of Agent Venom and Crossbones could be quite handy for this obscure options, but I'd probably say as much as possible try to keep the enemy to an L1, create plenty of distance when that L1 is hit towards you, because I've had at times where I'm thinking, right, comfortably, I can do one swipe away. In some cases, I think I've done 2 swipes, but it looks like for whatever reason, it only seems like I've only done 1 because I've just been completely smacked. So do bear in mind, create plenty of distance between you and the enemy champion. And obviously with Mystic Ward being at 95%, using Mystic based champions that nullify may not be that much of a good thing, and maybe finding other champions from other types of class lines could be an option for us. But let's face it, at the end of the day, I would have stayed to skill based champions because there's so many powerful options down that line. Hawkeye is a real kind of don for this. I think that he's a great champion, still one of the most underrated in the game, and yeah, I think a lot of players do use it for different types of fights. Okay, and now on to the final part of 5.3.6, and that is Split Atom. And obviously you can choose to use science-based champions, and I would, because at the end of the day, some of the best science-based champions have only been released in the recent last 2 years. So that's one reason obviously I'm doing this this guide and the guide series, is because the game has changed slightly to really benefit you as a new player to this game. And so for this, if you've got Cap, Infinity War, She-Hulk, Void, Quake, Mr. Fantastic, Spider-Gwen, She-Hulk, Hulk, Red Hulk, Luke Cage, and you can have an absolute blast. But also don't write off other champions like an awakened and unawakened version of The Thing, Invisible Woman, Wasp, MODOK. You know, those champions are just some of the best champions to go up against this. If you've got Void and also you've got She-Hulk and Cap Infinity War, you've got Petrify, and Petrify is really good at kind of counteracting things like power gaining and as well as healing, so that is something to then take down enemies really effectively, and will be very much in play when it comes to our final boss right here. You've also got double immunity when it comes to the use of the Thing, and Thing can be you know, so darn good for damage output. Quake as well, if you're able to do Quake, and I'd recommend Dork Lessons' guide to Quake if you want to find out a bit more about how, without even touching the enemy, you can do extensive amounts of damage. Also, as mentioned, Petrify is very good to use against the champion of or champions that have cornered, because that is again going to be incredibly important. But keeping your distance and having the ever delightful Void is probably one of the best things about this. Okay, so the boss has all the annoying things, but Void and Cap are built for this well. Void being Incinerate immune is not needed, but helpful if you make a mistake with amazing debuff based damage. Also, something to mention is suppressing aspects of the champion's power gain and healing, which obviously we've discussed, and that's what Cap and Void do very well. But don't write off champions like She-Hulk, who can Petrify, offer the special attack too. Keep champ at SP1 or SP2 as at a push, but Petrify is important to limit power gain as well. Apply Petrify if you plan to play aggressively, and that's really the final point going up against Green Goblin. Okay, here we are in Act 5.4. Now, there is a bit of bad news, but some good news from this. The bad news is that you're not able to just move around the map. So if I kind of go to, I use one of the energy here and say I want to go to like there, for example, I get to see some aspects, but not total aspects of what's on that given lane. Even by doing like this is the only way to get over there. And then I'm trying to like free move the camera. It's not giving you that level of detail, but there is a positive to this problem. And that is that we have this here. This is done, I think, on the MCOC guide blog spot. Obviously, link is in the description to this. But this credits to someone called Rag Humanath, and as well to the Clan HQ app team. So I will kind of put a link to Clan HQ in the description as well. So I don't know who is the source for this. But as well, like, information is collected over various different things. And one of the first things is to take into consideration is things that they give you advice, that they talk about life transfer, which is there. And obviously we've talked about that in previous options of different champions to use up against this. Also talking about paths as well. Karnak, Loki, Gwenpool gets Stupefy, Yondu. There's a lot of various different types of nodes that enemies have. And whereas it's all been a case of Act 5.1, 2, 3, and now 4, it's all of what is in 1 to 3 now put into 4. So all those nodes that you've trained off against and having various different champions, this is where you put things into practice, and this is when obviously you've got to learn your lessons. Punisher 2099 is the end boss and has 25% power gain over 5 seconds, enhanced special 2, critical buffs, and 108,000 health points. Obviously for this, I'd say any champion that power controls is going to be a very good option, so look towards that as being the best one for there. And again, we've talked about ideas of champions against Bane, we've talked about ideas against stun immunity, power gain, and other types of things. Moving on to Act 5.4.1, so obviously there's different types of paths. There's an easy path there, short path, but also there are full paths, and these are the full paths here, an A, B, C, D, and E, and those are the various different options there. This is the full map as well, as you can see. Again, links are in the description for this, and champions that go quite well are going to be here against Mystics with your Blade, with the immunities, the synergies, and so many other different champions to go against. Obviously, you can see a shorter and easier pass. Venompool, Angela, Dr. Voodoo, Wolverine, Extremity Superior, Iron Man, Blade, Deadpool, Juggernaut. Most of those seem to have some aspects of regeneration, so punishing against that could be a definite option. You've also got the likes of MODOK. MODOK's a pretty decent champion for that, but obviously don't write off other ones that have persistent charges, and we've talked about ones like Aegon, that's really good, and also Corvus, that's very good as well. Going up against these, you're going to be able to slay damage, and the same thing with a lot of these ones here you're going up against. Keep champions to the L1 and you should be fine. There are some different champions that are a little bit more frustrating along the lines to mention, but yeah, 5.4.1 seems to be more kind of like straightforward than others will be. Now on to Act 5.4.2. Now obviously there's Resilience, Iron Man Resistor, Enhanced Armor Up, Iron Patriot Resistor, Enhanced Armor Up, Armor Break, Luke Cage Resistor, and Armor. And Moving Portal, choose the middle path and you'll find these champions. Check map. Hood, Breakthrough, obviously we've talked about Breakthrough and how you need to, build up your damage or build up your hits onto the enemy to reduce down the armor rating, which is exceedingly high to begin with. And there's a few other things as well to mention. Watch out for Morningstar, because that is the one there. We've got blocked Shatter, Recovery, Heal Block, and obviously she will start bleeding you, so champions that interlock quite well in that will probably be champions like Iceman, and various other champions to boot as well. Obviously the persistent charges will remain the same, and these are your breakdown of your full paths, and as you can see, these are the various different types of champions you're going up against and different modes and methods there. This is the full map here. So yeah, look out for stuff like Masochism. Masochism's there. You've got Rage, Power, Resilience, and each one will change and as you get to the end boss. So again, look out for that. 5.4.3 time now, and again, this is the easy path. Obviously, you follow the resistor path. Thor is immune to debuffs. Not particularly great, but again, use champions that may have things like buffs. It's going to be fine. And then you move to Iceman, Beast, Iron Fist. Iceman's debuff effect is going to be annoying. Maybe if you've got the likes of Ghost, that's going to interwork quite well. And maybe it's the case if you had Mr. Sinister, you can fire back any kind of debuff from I think it's Cold Snap or Frost. Which one of the two? So Cold Snap or Frostbite. One is the one that's the passive, one is the actual debuff itself. But then you move to Hulk, who's immune to bleed, which is fine because you just have to remember to intercept. And as well, watch out for the SP1. SP1 for me, I don't really like evading particularly well. And always try and do the SP2. But this is a lot more straightforward than previous quests running up to here. This Act 5.1 and 5.4, in my opinion, are probably the more straightforward and easier ones. But when it comes to 5.3 and 5.2, it's a little bit more tedious. Going down to the full path, and the short path and easy path, which is mentioned above. Thor, Quake, Iceman, Beast, Iron Fist, Unstoppable Colossus, Winter Soldier, Juggernaut, Hulk, Rocket Raccoon, Medusa, Hela. Obviously, that is the scheme of things there. And then there's another set of ones there. Again, same principle. Keep champions only doing SP1s. As soon as you get to SP2 territory, it does become a lot more complicated. Here is the full map as well, explaining the directions of where to go. And this is, as I said, good guide. All credit to the people involved. As you see down here, data provided by Mutamat and Hoop Dog, and the various other people, Vex as well. And then we've got Josh as well, Josh Sizemore, and Dragon. I believe it's Dragon Flay from the Unofficial Marvel Contest of Champions podcast. But yeah, there's lots of things here that are incredibly helpful. 5.4.4, easy path, short path. There we go, breakthrough again, rearing its head, stun immunity. That's annoying, so your intercept game has to be on point there. And then going down, it's just the way that it goes. Like this is basically the path here. Looks like that. Pretty straightforward. And then we've got the different ones here for 5.4.4 of ways to go. Obviously, the extent of what you face off against. Just remember to have different and various champions for this, but keep enemies at SP1s and you should be fine. As I said, this is a lot more straightforward, and all the things that you've got information wise when it comes to things like brute force, like rage that you faced off against, biohazard. And for those that don't know biohazard, it's always more handier. It's not exactly the best thing, but it's more handier to have champions that are double immunity, because let's face it, you're not going to have all the key ones, but double immunities will be quite good for that. So make sure to choose champions like robot champions, and as well champions that work against Iceman. That's another example. Mephisto's quite good in some places, but I would probably say not completely for Biohazard. Vitality as well, because he bleeds. Vitality, you should have come across that by now. We've got one there, breakthrough. That's something as well. Maybe armor break champions could be quite handy. There's some poison champions there, so that may be quite handy for Medusa. Masochism, and we know Masochism. Masochism is the debuff effects. Don't put debuff effects on the enemy. Keep enemies at L1 and avoid them thusly. Moving now to Act 5.4.5, easy short path. Obviously, again, you'll know these things. Power and resilience, power control champions, always very important to have that in your roster. Explosive personality, not nice. Gains armor while hitting the block. Upon reaching 5 armor ups, they explode and remove 25% of your health. Obviously, well, just don't get hit into the block. That's really the main thing. Easier said than done. And I would say in those things to kind of create plenty of distance. Parry's important, and as well try to do intercepts as much as you can. Look out for How the Duck. Buffs last 40% longer. You've then got Groot, immune to poison. Not the end of the world. Again, stick to hit him through. Make sure he's like L1 or something. Cosmic Spider-Man, immune to stun effects. That is annoying, and I would probably say with champions that have got True Strike, especially dealing, or abilities to go against certain types of evading effects. Because when Cosmic Spider-Man throws a special attack, he gets an evade, a passive evade. And I'd say champions that evade fail, like the likes of your Nick Furies, you can use True Strike and other stuff like that. That could help out as well. It's kind of important. We've got Unstoppable Colossus, buffs last 40% longer, important, but as well not ridiculous, especially because you could have champions that nullify that, like your Doctor Doom, any magic or any mystic characters. We've got Outlast, we've got Debilitate. I can't speak. We've got Red Hulk with Incinerate and Incinerate immunity. 50% damage, 10% life steal if you have a buff. Yeah, again, Mystic Ward, explosive personality with Luke Cage. All things avoidable. All things L1. Keep champions to L1s and you'll be fine. And I would probably say just put different champions to nullify, Incinerate immune, those kind of things. Make sure you look at a champion before you select them, and just kind of look at the type of map that you're going to be doing, especially when it comes to like doing like the main boss, which is Mephisto, and the fact is you'll need a champion maybe like Blade with his villain synergy or his mystic synergy to go against that, just to kind of minimize any damage going against it. And there's a few other bits of information. These are the various paths here and champions you'll face off against. As you can see here, we've got things like, again, Biohazard, we've got Caltrops, and for Caltrops that's Bleed. So again, Bleed immune champions. But we've covered all this in previous aspects to this guide. Refer back to stuff we've discussed as well. You've got more things on immunities. You've got more things. You've got Rage, Cornered. Down here, you've got explosive personality there. Cornered, you'll need champions that power control quite well. So yeah, good luck with that one. And obviously we've done the training, we've seen or heard it in action, so it's important to kind of be prepared, but you should be fine with this. And now we're on to the final 5.4.6, and this will be the big Ultron fight in a moment. So you can go Electro first to the left, or Yellow Jacket to the right. And as soon as you go over the portal, you have the option of going down Resilience, which is the resistor. You then have got so many different options to go down the route of. But it's important when you're looking at the likes of this, just pick and choose wisely. You'll probably get a little bit annoyed and bored of this by just doing it constantly. I must admit, when I was using my champions, especially going against stuff like Vigor and Bane and Buffet, and I didn't really like power. Was fine because it was just more easier to kind of power control certain champions. And nowadays there's better champions to use against different situations. Biohazard as well is a little bit more straightforward with champions like Iceman or double immunity champions, because if you've got a bleed effect or a poison effect, if you're immune to them, then that's fine. Resistor and Rage, another Rage as, it's Bane. I always get confused with those. Rage, it's kind of annoying. Resistor, yeah, it's kind of annoying as well. But the fact is, these are doable things, especially with champions down here. I think this is probably the most easiest one, with being the double immunity, and you'll find yourself going down different routes, like going, okay, you come over here, start here, go up here, go up there, come across there, go up there. Then you'll find yourself going down there, up there, down there. It's a little bit frustrating, but I think it's always good to kind of go up there and round, over there and up, and just try and cross bits out when you come to it, but always kind of look back at this and maybe print this out and kind of draw on it, just to kind of figure out which routes you're going to do and how many times and the number of times you're going to do. But also maybe write out the type of champions you'll need. 1 or maybe 2 champions will be specific to take down this final Ultron boss here, because he is annoying, but there are sufficient counters to him. Now these here are recommended champions, but there are so many different ones. Now Medusa Duped, yes, of course, works quite well with enemies because it's able to have armor shattered off the back of kind of building up medium attacks. I mean, for me, what I like doing is I like doing about a combo with 2 mediums in it, which gives us 2 armor breaks. Then I like to hit in with an SP1, which gets you up to armor shattered, and armor shattered does help to suppress things like regeneration, and as well things like the power gain. Very, very important. But what if you don't have a Medusa? Well, Void works the same way, with reducing down with Petrify, as we've discussed, and also limiting down the extent of things like the power gaining. Nebula is incredibly helpful as well with the extent of damage output. I think this is referring to by her shock damage. Also, when it comes to Loki, Loki's all about taking those very meaty buffs, and in particular he'll get Loki will try and steal the amazing amount of fury damage that the fury buff that Ultron has. So that is another thing to kind of point out, that Loki will take that. Doesn't always work, and I didn't find it the most enjoyable using Loki. But now again, there are so many different champion options to consider. We talked about Petrify with the likes of Captain America Infinity War. But yeah, most of these options are kind of the main sought out options to use. Here's an example where something goes really well, and this is Captain Ragu's fight. As you can see, using Loki, and then it's a case of trying to build up as much as possible. Very good play, and obviously this is where the intercepts and the kind of playing style is very important. So we're going to see an SP1 in a moment. There we go. So that's timed in pretty well. Is then hit in. And then once Loki's completed this, he's then got cursed. And as you can see there, that regeneration went over to Loki. Now what I think that Captain Ragu is now trying to do is go and grab that certain type of fury effect, which he grabs through the ability of doing a heavy attack right there. He's picked it up and he's hit, and he's grabbed that, so which means he can do an excessive amount of damage. But I do feel that if you don't have Loki and you can't play as well as this, even though now he's picked up 2 of those fury buffs and obviously has been able to steal them, it's going to be a very hard slog to take a 3-star against it. So let's face it, guys, watch out for poison as well, because that's, as you can see, eating his health. But he does very well to take down the enemy. It is possible, but you have to have a good bit of skill. There we have it, guys. That has been my Act 5 guide. Now, some people may argue that this has been a bit too late, But from my point, I just think that this is the best time. The game has a lot of new champions in. When Act 5 was released, it had a fraction of the amount that's currently in now, 160 champions, as opposed to how much were there when Act 5 was about. And also some better champions have been released only recently to take down this. So obviously I think that it's a good enough at any time to do a beginner guide from start right the way to Act 5. And I'm pretty happy and pretty proud of this guide in its entirety. Massive shout outs to the links of different types of information used, mainly for Act 5.4. So shout out to all those people, Dragon, to Captain Ragu, and many others that were featured in that last section there. And yeah, thank you very much for watching this video and also watching the beginner guide so far. I do plan to do some more, but it will be in January, because it's just a case of, like, I think January 2020, new champions, and as well, like, more kind of a fresher look on the game. And I will be doing things like a Realm of Legends guide and also Road to Labyrinth guide. I've also done a Labyrinth for Legends guide as well. That's already out on the channel for the easy path, and I'll do a full path one at a later date. But yeah, look out for other guides in the future. Thank you very much for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.